Okay, hello guys, welcome to the Three Hammers podcast. We have got Graeme. I'm just going to put him in the stream. Hello, Graeme, mate. We are live now. You call that? We are live now. We are live on YouTube. Hello, mate. Nice to absolutely have you on again, mate. You was a great guest last time.
Thank you.
Sorry, we did have a little bit of time to do some pre-stuff before. We have a little chat, a little bit of mingle before. Obviously, we have to go straight in because Paul ain't got a lot of time.
No worries.
We'll start with last night's game, mate, because it's where we start all the time. Leicester, mate, what did you make of that? I'll go to you first, then we have a little word from Paul. So, what did you make of that game last night, mate?
What can you say? It was it was terribly disappointing, wasn't it? I think it was not unexpected. We weren't really hoping for too much. You know, Leicester have been playing really well, even though they've had a bit of a hiccup lately. We're playing so badly at the moment, and we got what we deserved. Really, we didn't play. I think there was a statistic on the BBC website that said we had 17 passes in the first 10 minutes of the game, and that kind of set us up for the next 85
They overpowered us totally, didn't they?
Totally
overpowered us.
They did, and that second goal was obviously the killer. I mean, if you go in at 1-0 down at half time, you give yourself a chance. When there's only one goal in it, anything can happen. So that was a real kick in the nuts. That one really coming. What was it? The 4th minute of added on time.
Yeah, man,
and then of course we get the goal back from the penalty spot, which I thought was a little bit dubious. I don't know what you fellas thought, but it didn't really seemed a bit soft to me. The penalty.
I think he bought that penalty. I think he bought that.
Yeah, I think so.
It was,
and then,
soft, but there was contact. He did catch him with a knee. I don't know. I think it was a soft penalty, but yeah, I think there wasn't enough contact for them.
I think give us hope. Give us hope. That horrible thing that us West Ham fans hate. Hope.
It did. Yeah. And then obviously we fell to bits completely afterwards, and we got, as I said before, we got exactly what we deserved, and 4-1 thumping, which sets us up nicely for 2 games against Liverpool and a trip to Manchester City.
What about you, Paul? Do you think that exposed everything that's wrong with us last night?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I didn't see the game. I was working, so all I saw was the goals. Saw the goals afterwards. Saw the highlights. But everything I've read sounds like it was probably our worst performance this season, just from what I read. I mean, everyone knows over on
lack of pace, everything
on the match forum every game, and it weren't good reading. So it looks like it was a bad performance. The goals we conceded, just I don't know. What do you blame? Is it the?
I think I blame the setup. I'll tell you what, Hammers Chat Boys summed it up really nicely. I watched their video this morning. They said the blueprint was laid. The teams that have beat them in the last 2 games play 4-4-2. He set up with 5 at the back. And 4-4-2 have been our best performances, no? Under Moyes, since he come in. 4-0 against Bournemouth. And what was the other game? We got 1-1 against Everton, weren't it? When we played 4 at the back. So go like that, it don't make sense. Right, for anyone who doesn't know Graeme, we're going to leave the Leicester game now because it's just going to drive me insane. I just wanted to give Graeme his chance to welcome him now. So, Graeme, you are from Knees Up Mother Brown, mate. One of the biggest websites out there for West Ham. You've been up to, mate, since we last see you about probably a year ago now.
Working hard, I suppose. Paying the rent, that sort of thing, No, we've been, in terms of the site, if you want me to talk about the site, we're trying to develop certain new areas. For example, our presence on YouTube is something we're working hard on at the moment, and we're a lot of the KUMB podcast interviews that we did 3 or 4 years ago into YouTube videos. So where they were kind of part of an overall podcast, we've just cut out the interview itself, and put that into something that people can listen to in a playlist. So we're busy working on those. Lots of things going on the site, lots of things happening off the site, as I'm sure we're going to be talking about in the next hour or so. But it's just a shame the football isn't isn't much better. It certainly doesn't seem, we're talking about the last year, so it's probably just got worse, and it's the whole club, the problems just seem to be growing month by month.
Yeah, I think we're losing our club every year, and every month that goes on, we're losing a little bit of our club every now. I think.
Yeah, there's it's a difficult one. I mean, I've just published a story, an article on our website, which talks about how the downfall started about 20 years ago. The guy who wrote it talks about when Redknapp was sacked. Now, we started. Harry Redknapp was a manager when we started Knees Up Mother Brown back in 1997, and he kind of blames that for the start of the downfall. You can kind of picture that going on through the appointment of Rhoda, Pardew, who the guy says was more interested in himself than the club. The Kirbishley era.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kirbishley walked out in disgust at the sale of George McCartney behind his back. Zola coming in, and then of course we've got the modern day era, the last 10 years under the current administration, when we've had 4 or 5 managers who've all been sort of a bit meh, I suppose you'd say, really. So in one way it's been a gradual decline. Perhaps we're to blame in some way, I don't know, but it seems to have happened on our watch in some way. But there's certainly not been an awful lot to cheer about in the last year, or even the last few years. The last great season we had was the last one at the Bowling, wasn't it?
Yeah, which was unbelievable.
16.
Yeah.
Which is the only time in the last decade we finished above 10th place. So it's got to get better soon, anyway, isn't it?
Surely, mate. Surely. Do you know what I mean? There's that famous saying: "You've got to hit rock bottom, and then you can start growing back again."
Tell you what, mate, there's a long way for us to go.
Yeah.
What genuinely scares me at the minute is if we go down, which, let's be realistic, it looks exceedingly likely now we're going to get relegated this season. We've all been through relegations with a club before. A lot of people were looking forward to it, but I don't think it's going to be as easy to come back up this time. I really don't. I think the Championship in general is a much, much stronger league.
Yeah, it's not a Mickey Mouse league anymore.
No, I really could see us, if we go down, we really could slide. That's worrying for me. I don't think it would be like it was the last couple of times anyway.
Yeah, and I think we had the right managers last time. Like you look at Allardyce, was the right man at the right time. Is there a manager out there, apart from maybe Allardyce himself? Is there a manager that you feel would just go into West Ham and get us straight back up?
But even then, Sam didn't make it easy for himself getting us up, did he?
Yeah, he gave us a Wembley doubt, though.
we should have, technically, really, we should have walked the league that season. That's what everyone was expecting. The wages we were paying, the team we had, just about got there. Yeah, great day out, obviously. But I don't know. I think it'd be very, very tough if we go down. This time.
I think it's a good chance to move on to obviously the biggest thing, and I know a bit of a voice of it at the minute, mate. The protests. The media as well. I think we can sort of match them in together. Been a lot of lies, about how many was actually there and how successful they were. For me personally, it looked like they was a huge success, and they was done peacefully, which I think really upset the board even more. It's probably hoping for a Cockney knees up of a fight or something like that. For me, mate, I think just got to let it keep going. I'm going to show you a picture quickly just before I let Graeme talk about it. So for anyone who hasn't seen the pictures, see, there's more than 100 people there. I can tell you that now. So Graeme, mate, how do you make of it? The protest? Was you actually there yourself, Oliver?
Yeah, did some talking as well. Spoke very well, so we hear.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be asked to speak. I was actually supposed to be second on. But the guy who was supposed to be first, a guy called Tross, who you may or may not know from the Knees Up Mother Brown forum, was away on business in the week preceding the protest, and he flew in to London on the Saturday morning. I don't think his plane arrived until something like 11 o'clock in the morning. So he was making this mad dash across the city to try and get there to speak first. And in the end, I think he got there at about 1:10 So I was kind of moved forward from the second slot to the opening slot, which was reasonably daunting. But it was a fantastic event, and it was a real good display from those that were there. One, in terms of numbers. Two, in terms of the way they handled themselves. I mean, it was a really it was a peaceful protest, which was the main thing. There was no aggro.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single arrest. I posted some pictures on social media the other day, showing some of the attendees going around picking up beer cans and Coke cans and stuff that had been discarded by other people that had been there. It was just that sort of event. It was. A lot of people have said it made them feel really positive for the first time in a long time
really
about West Ham. And, where I said in my speech that, we've been told for years that we haven't got any fight in us anymore as a fan base, that had gone, that perhaps, the bond scheme in 92 and the brownout thing in 2003, 2004 was probably the last time you'd see that from West Ham. But this, it gave people a lot of faith, I think, that the fan base isn't dead. It's I suppose sort of coming back to Terry Jones, who sadly died yesterday. This parrot is alive. It's not actually dead, and there's life in the old dog yet. So it was really well done by Hammers United. Now they've been working. I hate to use the phrase, but they have been working tirelessly to put this thing together. They set up, just under a year ago, and I've spoken quite extensively to those guys in the last few weeks, doing some stuff on Knees Up Mother Brown, some articles and things like that with them. So I've got to know them a little bit, and those guys are absolutely committed. These aren't people that are going to put on a protest, rest on their laurels, and just go away happy that they've had their day in the sun. They're determined to affect change at the club, and so for me it was just a real pleasure to be able to say a few words to the rest of the fan base and those of who feel a similar way, that this club does deserve better. It can do better, and it should be doing better. And so the next one is planned for the 29th of February, I believe.
Yeah, I did see that.
Between now and then, they're sort of offering or asking the club to do something every day for the next 40 days between now and then. We're talking about little things. I think one of the
like a goodwill gesture, wasn't it? It was a goodwill gesture.
That's it.
Every day.
Yes. So, the point is, these guys are here to stay. I think it's. They're not going to be a flash in the pan, which is.
Yeah, I think Paul will put me on this. I think our big fear was when we had the protest. What was it, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? I think we had a real momentum at that point. I think when that all went down, I think, like you say, mate, I think we all thought that was it. We lost our chance to do something there. I think you guys doing what you're doing and Hammers United doing what they're doing, I think there's a chance to build a bit of momentum again now, and in a positive way, not so much anger. It's more of we're going to save our club. We'll still support the team. We won't do it in the stadium so much. That's what's so much better, no?
That's absolutely right. It's.
Talking about, mate.
Sorry, Paul. Go on. I thought. No. Go on. Carry on.
No, I just wanted to say, and this is actually, I'm glad you mentioned it a minute ago about the fact that they're here to stay, and exactly that, the plan going forward and what comes next and carrying on with the protests. My question would be, do you think that that's enough? Do you think that a protest, 100% protest, peaceful protest, that's what we want, that's what we want to see, but away from the cameras, away from the ground, do you think that's going to be enough? Do you think the club will listen, or do you think it's easy for them to ignore?
As a one-off, it's reasonably easy for the club to ignore, but the key is to apply pressure consistently, and that's the battle, isn't it? At the end of the day, we've already seen in the last week or so the club's concerted effort to fight back in the media. In the week before the protest, you had Karen Brady, David Gold, and Dave Sullivan all went, in the media on TV. The Evening Standard, Sullivan did the Standard, Gold did the puff piece with Moose from TalkSport.
Sure.
And you know, so there was that, and then you had certain people, you know, as you said, saying that there was only 200 or 300 people turning up, or that were there, and you know, we think the figure was around 2,000 people.
Yeah, it looked about
possibly,
that. Yeah.
Possibly a few less, possibly a few more at some points, but that was the rough figure that turned up. So, you know, for looking at pushing forward, that's a really good start, because that's when, you know, the momentum will gather from now. Bearing in mind that the PA system the guys had there on last Saturday, you know, unless you're in the front few rows, you couldn't hear a word that the speakers were saying, and so everyone was kind of cramming forward. But that kind of sums it up, and I think that's quite a positive thing, really, because it just shows that everyone's mucking in, you know. And at the end of the day, and I've heard it said that these people are troublemakers, but they're not. All these guys want is the best for West Ham. All they want is the opportunity to speak to the board and say, look, we think you're doing this wrong. We think you could perhaps do this a little bit better. We want to help you. We want to work together. And the only thing that's preventing that from happening at the moment is the stubborn attitude from our vice chair and those in the boardroom who are refusing to speak to those guys. And, you know, it's not much to ask, is it? Just to have a voice. Obviously, the thing at the moment is the club will only speak to the official supporters board, which is an undemocratic organisation, obviously. And all these guys are saying, look, we just want to put our own people forward, that the fans want to speak on their behalf, and we want to talk. We want dialogue. We want to liaise with you, and that's all they want. You know, they're not there to cause aggro. They're not there to cause trouble. They're not there to, you know, kick off in front of the director's box in the stadium. And in fact, they've made it quite clear, Hammers United, that they don't want any activity inside the stadium. They want to make sure that everybody's behind David Moyes and the players while the games are taking place, which is why they held that. One of the reasons they held that protest is because they wanted to stave off the opportunity for kind of sporadic outbursts of dissent and
like the Burnley game.
Absolutely, exactly that. They didn't want another repeat of that. So they're doing their darndest to try and do this professionally and to go about it in a calm manner. So we'll see where that takes them. You know, we'll see where that takes them from here. But as I say, you know, it's very, very different to 2 years ago. There was a real you know, that movement developed really quickly 2 years ago, and you know, we don't need to go into details, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out.
Yeah, and that's why the protest happened at the Burnley game as well, because people weren't allowed their protest. Yes. That's exactly why it all kicked off, mate.
That's absolutely right. That's exactly what it was. There were so many frustrated people that didn't get the opportunity to have this say to march. That was you know, the consequence of it, unfortunately. But this time, you know, it's still the same. You still read quite a lot of people saying we want to march, you know, we want to, you know, do something inside the stadium. But this is the right way. The way they're doing it is the right way. It's got to be calm. It's got to be professional, and it's going to take time. You can't expect
because then
it to happen overnight.
Club can't. Not the club so much, the board can't put out the spin. Oh, these are just renter mob. These are violent people. They don't want to change the club. They don't want to care about West Ham. If it's all done quite peacefully, can't put that spin out there. The only spin they've put out is that only 200 people turned up. We see it with TalkSport, didn't we? I know Hawksby and Jacob sort of got in touch with you, I think. And there's Hammers United was supposed to be on there. I don't know whether you know this story, Paul. It was meant to be on TalkSport, Hammers United, advertised on their Twitter, etc., and then they didn't put them through. It's ridiculous. Was there any more into that? Was there any reason why they didn't put them on? You reckon they've been told by the club to not put them on? For you, Graeme.
Well, the thing is this: when I spoke to TalkSport at lunchtime that day, so it was about 12 o'clock. The program was supposed to go out at 3:15. That slot, and I know that they'd already spoken to Paul Colburn, who is the chairman of Hammers United, and they'd asked him to go on. So at that point, there was no issue with him having an FBO, a football banning order, because for the benefit of your readers who aren't aware, Paul was the guy who, during that Burnley match, plucked the corner flag out and put it in the centre of the pitch. And subsequently, I mean, Paul's in his early 60s. He's not a young man, but this is a guy who deeply cares and he's passionate about his club. And he was prepared to do that, and he knew what was coming. You know, he's not a stupid man. He's a clever guy, and he knew what was going to, he knew what the consequences were of that, and he's been banned for life. So at that point, TalkSport were quite happy to have him on, and then they were kind of speaking to me at the same time, and they said, we'd like to get you on. And so that's fine. I'm quite happy to talk about it. But I said, please be aware that the protest is nothing to do with me. It's Hammers United's baby. I'm simply reporting on it as part of the West Ham media. And the next thing I knew was that I got a call from Paul to say that, they've told me I'm not welcome on the show because I've got an FBO. And they've told me that you're taking my place. So, I phoned TalkSport back straight away and said, look, I said, while I'm quite happy to come on your show and speak to you, I'm not going to come on and speak on behalf of Hammers United because I'm not part of the group. This is their baby. And if you want to speak to them, to anybody about the protest, you speak to them. I said, I'm quite happy to go on with them, but I'm not going to go on in their place.
Yeah.
And the fallout of that was that they wouldn't put Paul on. They told me that it didn't work having two people on. To his credit, I felt so sorry for the guy that was dealing with it because he was clearly getting orders from above. And so the point being, to cut a long story short, at some point between kind of lunchtime and around about 2:30, just prior to the show going out, someone had told TalkSport or someone at TalkSport had told the producer of the show that they couldn't put Paul on air.
It's crazy. That's definitely come from the board, surely.
I'm not saying that's the case.
It could be allegedly.
Yeah, but wherever it's come from, it's it's part of that whole thing about trying to silence the supporters and keep them at bay. So this is what they're up against anyway.
Yeah. And the thing, what's good about one good thing about social media is that it enables you to not keep silent. As much as it is a cesspit better sometimes, it's able to get that news out there. That Hammers United weren't on TalkSport. That was trending everywhere for a while. That was as well. All this TalkSport stuff, Hawksby Jacobs, you're a joke. It was everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
It was, and they got more publicity and more positivity from not going on the show than they would have done by going on it in the end as a result. So, it was a massive own goal by whoever had made that decision, because they could have put Paul on there. They probably could have ripped into pieces about the FBO and said you've got a criminal record and all that. But
they could have twisted it.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the end, he just garnered loads of sympathy for it, and Hammers United, I think, got more people sort of looking at what they're saying and determined to give them a chance. So, but it was the same with the interviews, wasn't it? With the Brady, Sullivan, and Gold interviews. I mean, they were car crashes.
Oh yeah,
all three of them.
David Gold one. He's interviewed by someone who doesn't represent the West Ham fans. I think that's a universal message. No one's saying an old man and attacking with real hard questions, because you're not going to get the interview in that case. At least give him some edgy questions. I mean, the Karen Brady bloke, actually, the one who interviewed her, credit to him, he did give him some tough questions.
Yeah, Ian King, I believe he's a West Ham fan, actually.
Is he? Yeah.
Guy from Sky, I think he is. Yeah, so I'm guessing he probably has some sympathy with the protesters, judging by the questions that you refer to. And yeah, I mean, it was those three interviews. I mean, I don't know what the idea was. Obviously, it was kind of like, in a way, it sort of mirrored without trying to get political, but it almost mirrored the Tory approach to the last general election, where it was like, hands up, we've made some mistakes, but we've got the right people at the helm now, and we know what we need to do, and we're going to take this forward. But that might work in politics, but it didn't work for a football club. And, the whole David Gold stuff about, we made promises, but, there's some are real promises and some are hopeful promises. It was just farcical, So there you are. So I think in the end, all of those factors worked in favour of the protesters. I think probably, managed to get a few more people there than they might otherwise have expected as a result. So, I think they need to look at their approach if that's the way they wish to continue going forward.
Anyone watching this, the people in the live chat now as well.
Yeah, I am going to put some questions up in a minute.
Yeah, no, obviously, that is carrying on. I think it's massively united in the fan base at the minute. We do want change. So if you do want to support, so it's February the 29th, we're saying, is potentially the next protest. Go down there, show your support, show that there is still fight in this club. That's something we said last week. It's something
save our bloody club, save our club.
Yeah, show that there's still life there. And obviously you can go to Knees Up Mother Brown, great source for news as well, for updates. I don't know, actually, I'm not a member of Hammers United. I don't know. I'm assuming they've got a website as well.
We follow them on Twitter as well. We're, like the Free Hammers follow them on Twitter and stuff, and I think they're on Instagram as well. Yeah, we'll definitely get the details up. I'm going to let Paul take this section. Thanks a lot for the protest info, mate. That's really helped us. Obviously, it's nice to have someone who knows a little bit more about it rather than us just going on things we read. It's nice to hear it from the horse's mouth sometimes. Right, Paul, you can have this bit. Lack of Dimitri Payet coming back.
What do you want me to talk about? Not really
go on, mate. Go for it. You have this bit.
So, well, funny enough, I saw this from a post that you put up today, Graeme, about the Payet. Apparently, the club's looking into it. I've been really against, after he left last time, I'm quite against Payet. Wouldn't really wanted to see him back. But I genuinely think he could do really well if he come back this time. I'm gutted to see what's happened to Lanzini. Really am. I don't know why he's starting at the moment in place of Fornals, but I was saying to Luke earlier on, I think if we did manage to bring in Payet, if we bought in someone to sit in that midfield, the likes of Kessie, possibly on loan, I think we might maybe give ourselves a chance, possibly another striker. But just talking about transfers in general, it just, to me, it feels like nothing's going to happen now. I really can't see. It's getting too late. If anything does happen, it's going to be panics.
Desperate for pace. Desperate for someone with a bit of pace.
Do you think there's anything in the Payet story, Graeme?
No, I don't think there's an awful lot in it. It was what it was is I was actually just going to bed last night when I got a note to say that it was being run in France. L'Équipe were running the story saying that West Ham had made an inquiry, and just put it out simply as that, just to say, you know, it's come out, this is the case. And then I think it was rebuffed as early as sort of 9 o'clock this morning. The club told Sky, I think, to say that there was nothing in it. You know, you've got to sort of join the dots a bit here. The one signing we've made this January is Randolph from Middlesbrough, who we believe still owed West Ham a bit of cash.
Yep.
So, you know, you don't have to sort of be a genius to work out that if they're looking at perhaps bringing Payet back, that might be the same case with Marseille.
Maybe, yeah, that's a good.
There's still a bit of cash outstanding. So rather than spend money, they can just say, you know, well,
rub off 12 million or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So that may be why they're looking at it. I don't know that for sure, but that's that's one possibility anyway. Would I have him back? Absolutely. The best player I've seen at West Ham in 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Canio, yeah, he's the best player I've ever seen in the West Ham shirt. Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, guys, you look at his form at the moment, he's playing pretty much around the best football he's ever played in his life. I mean, he might be 30. So I think he's 33 in May. So, you know, he's not getting younger. But when he was at West Ham, he never had any pace anyway. He didn't rely on his pace.
No, he just floated, didn't he? He floated.
Absolutely. So pace was never an issue. And I think he's scored something like 8 goals in 19 games this season. So he's banging form. Would he come back to West Ham? I would be very surprised. I would be very, very surprised.
Say about pace as well. Like Di Canio never had any pace either.
Oh, exactly.
Float past players, didn't he? Yeah. Go on,
exactly. Would you guys have him back? Would you take him back?
Yeah, I love the guy. I love the guy. But he broke my heart. I loved him.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, some of the best moments I've had in the last 5 years were because of Payet.
100%.
You know, I took my first away game with my son was the quarter final of the FA Cup at Manchester United, and you know, it's just one of those.
Free kick is unreal.
Oh, you know, and everyone knew what was coming as well. And it was just one of those things that, you know, as a West Ham fan, you treasure for life those moments. The goal against Middlesbrough at Stratford, when he just went round like 7 players and then did it again on the way back. And, you know, it's just probably the best goal I've ever seen at that stadium. No, actually, unquestionably the best goal I've ever seen at that stadium. And I know Andy Carroll scored that belter against Palace, but for me, you know, that was just outstanding. So, I mean, absolutely take it back too, right? But I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. Anyone else? You talked about the central midfielder. Yeah, I mean, we need someone there, don't we? We desperately need someone.
We've been needing that since September, mate. Since September,
well, look, how long you go back? Years. You go back to Carvalho at 3 or 4 years ago. We've been after someone to fill that position since Chiati left, haven't we? It's just never happened. So, you know, the fullbacks. Look at the fullback situation. Both sides, really, we've got issues, haven't we?
Definitely, they're suspect, definitely.
Yeah, so we need a lot of players. Strikers. I mean, I was talking to the H list, the guy that James who does the H list, that fantastic blog earlier today, and he was pointing out that if Haller gets injured, we're knackered. We've got no one.
We've got no one.
So
Antonio up front again.
Well, where do you start? You know, yeah, exactly. You can talk about central midfield, but you know, you go across the whole team and there's issues everywhere. So it really is just going to be a question of just trying to scrape through this year, and then we'll see what happens come the summer.
Do you think we will? Do you think we'll survive?
Do I think we'll stay up?
Yeah.
Well, look, in 2007, I did an interview with Eggert Magnusson over at Upton Park, and it was February of that year, and I think we'd just been beaten by 6 at Charlton. And I asked him the same question, and he was absolutely convinced that we'd stay up. And I was kind of trying to stifle the laughter as I was speaking to him, because I thought it was ludicrous what he was suggesting. And he was absolutely right. So I would never, ever say never again after that. But it's not looking likely, is it? I mean, you look at the next 4 games. So Liverpool, Brighton, Man City. Even if we beat Brighton, you know, are we going to stay out of that bottom 3 by the time those 4 games are played?
3-1 you've said there, Liverpool, City. Goal difference could be absolutely terrorised. Do you know what I mean? That could be minus 19 after them 3 games.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And the other thing is we're not scoring goals either. I mean, if you take out the Bournemouth game under Moyes, I don't think we've scored a goal in open play in the last 3 games, have we? We scored a penalty last night. Diop was the corner.
Yeah.
So, you know, didn't score it, but we did score at Sheffield United, but VAR deemed it. Ruled it out. So we haven't scored from open play in 3. So there's issues everywhere still. It's very worrying.
Do you think we will sign anyone this next?
I wouldn't be 9 surprised. Days? You know, we know that David Sullivan likes a last minute loan. I'm trying to think back. You know, most windows don't. In the last few years, I think we've pulled someone in
Elan back or Franco, Elan, legends there.
Yeah. So it's possible. I would be very surprised if we don't get anyone on loan, but whether it'll be a calculated signing.
He likes Serie A actually, doesn't he? Like I'm thinking Borelli, Mario. Who was the other one? Chirino, was that his name? Chirino, the guy from Inter Milan.
That's right. Yeah.
That was like the Serie A one.
Well,
I'm going to. We've had a few, haven't we?
Sorry, Paul, go.
I was going to say, there you go. If he likes Serie A, I've been saying it for like the last year. Get Kessie. Apparently, he's available. He's still young. 23 years old. I really think he could come in and transform that midfield. I just did see in the comments there. Someone said about Nzonzi as well. The players we've been linked with. If it was 5 years ago, we'd be having some team. But it's just.
I like Nzonzi though. He's would be a quick fix. He'd be a good quick fix, I think. Someone like Nzonzi. I'm going to jump in the comments just because. Just give Graeme some questions here. So, hey guys, can I ask Graeme? Does he really think likelihood of the owners selling, please? And also, to clarify, this clause on the stadium that is supposed to make them unable to sell.
Well, that's going to be
so. Isn't it? Well, there's 2 questions there. So let's take the first one. Do I think it's likely they'll sell? Everything you read and everyone you speak to says no. Everyone who's close to them. So, but that depends what happens. I mean, if the Hammers United group ramp up the pressure and make it really difficult for them, maybe they'll decide that it's easier just to walk away. What you've got to remember is that Dave Sullivan and David Gold not getting any younger. Excuse me. I mean, David Gold's
84
now. Is he 84, 83, 84? Yeah. Dave Sullivan's in his 70s. So these are not young men we're talking about. And, and you just wonder at that stage of your life, do you really want to be fighting with people, when you don't have to. I mean, they could just sell the club tomorrow for sort of 300 million, I guess, and walk away into the sunset considerably richer than they were 10 years ago when they came in. So
I thought he was going to do Harry Enfield then. Considerably richer than you.
I wonder which character you meant for a minute. Yeah, but so you know the option is there, but we hear. I mean, Dave Junior isn't really up for it. Jack seems to be the one most likely to take it on. The
I want the money if I was their kids, wouldn't you? If I was their kids, I want the money. But
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Do you want the aggro that's going to be going with it, or do you just want to say that I'll take that money elsewhere and invest it in another company or something?
Yeah, well, so, and my kids, my grandkids are sorted for life. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, exactly. But the second part of the question, the clause on the stadium, as we understand it, that's the end of the 22-23 season. So summer of 23, they can walk away. That clause that they have to pay a certain percentage of the sale figure is exhausted at that point. So yeah, so you're probably stuck with the current board for another 3 years anyway.
Sorry guys for anyone in the live chat if I don't your comment up. I'm just going to try and stick to the questions because we haven't got a lot of time, so I do apologise if I don't hit every comment tonight. Do you think, this is to all of us, I think, do you think we should recall Cullen, Diagana and Jordan Hugill, considering our squad is so light and that we are struggling to sign anyone? They're all good enough to get a game time, in my opinion. I think Grady, I would take Grady back. I know he got injured, didn't he, the other day? Again, he's something we need. Ace, hungry, he's in good form. I think that's a point. He's, in terms of positions in the league as well, you know, where West Brom are at the moment, they're not far behind in terms of big position totally. And he's form player at top of the Championship. So I think he would do good for us if we brought him back.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's a difficult one. Do you bring him back and risk him in an underperforming team? Do you leave him out on loan, let him keep that confidence building going, keep the form up, and then bring him back in the summer? I don't know. It's a difficult one. Hugill, is he any better than Ajeti? Really? I don't know. The only one I'd say possibly, and the thing is that you're looking at the likes of Josh Cullen to come in again as another option in midfield, but he hasn't really done it anywhere. It'd be good to have as another body, but I don't think he's going to improve the quality of the squad. Maybe the only thing he'd bring in is a bit of energy, a bit of fight, obviously being a youth product. But I don't know. I think to be honest, they're probably all best where they are at the moment. Diagana, I would say yes, but I think I'd be content to let him carry on his development at West Brom at the minute and then come back in the summer.
What about you, mate?
Yeah, I totally agree with Paul. I think of the three, Grady is the one that's most likely to succeed in the Premier League. But why, you know, I'm really reticent to take youngsters and throw them into a relegation fight. Mm-hmm. It's not a good place. You know, you really want to be bringing them in for the last 3 or 4 games of the season when you're sitting comfortably in mid-table, you know, and you're in no danger. It's a lot to ask of a kid or a young player to throw them into that. So I absolutely agree with Paul. I think leave them where they are. Josh, I'm not sure he's ever going to make the grade at West Ham, but again, I read that we've triggered the call, so that his clause in his contract, which means he's going to stay here for another year. So, you know, we've got 18 months to look at, and we don't have to do anything straight away with that.
Talking about pace as well, Nathan Holland as well. You know, if you wanted someone with pace, why did we let him go out on loan? It's another one, you know. Pace.
Yeah, I think I'd put him in the same sort of bracket, though. I don't think
looks a bit lightweight to me. You can tell he's a good player, but he does look lightweight.
Yeah, he's one of those I think that looks mustard at under 23, but it's a big step up, you know, going from that to not just the Football League, but you know, we're talking about the Premier League. We're talking about playing against the best footballers in the world. So it's a tough ask. Hugill, are we serious about that one? Or are we seriously talking about recording?
Do you need a player for your team tonight, Paul? Hugill could
get him over, mate, yeah, maybe we might get a game, yeah.
No, he's doing all right, isn't he? He's doing okay. He's doing all right at Rangers. So good luck to the lad. Good luck to him.
Trying to put that up from Amma's chat. It's good to have those guys in, and I believe it's Gio from the chat. So here's Gio for sending your support over. Just seeing if there's anything else here, major question wise. It's the latest on Nzonzi. Yeah, just rumours are out there. Apparently, X said, you know, we're looking at him. So, again, he would add to our squad at the minute. I think he would go into our first 11. Would you not agree with that, Paul? Even though you said 5 years ago, he goes in first 11.
Probably, yeah, probably. I would sit him next to Rice. I think it depends how you want us to play. It depends how we're setting up. I mean, if you look at the team we're playing at the minute, we're playing 3 centre backs. If we're playing, so how we started against Leicester, Zabaleta on the right. You know, Masuaku's a bit more attacking, but then you've got Noble, Snodgrass, Rice. That's a very, Snodgrass is more of an attacking player, but it's a very slow, very defensive team. Honestly, I'd be more inclined to have Fornals as a replacement for Noble, just to have a bit more forward momentum in the team. Someone who can, you know, if we do win the ball at the back, someone who can then carry the ball forward a little bit. Yeah, Fornals ain't the fastest, but he's a good technical player. He's got a good pass on him.
I don't know why he ain't getting picked either. Last few games, he's been our best player.
I think that, like, if we brought in someone like Nzonzi, it'd be good to have, because again, talking about injuries, what are we going to do if Rice gets injured at the minute? Then we've got Sanchez in the team again. So it'd be good to bring in as a body. I don't know if it'd start for me. Like I say, I'd be more inclined to play Fornals in the middle there, just to try and give us some more forward momentum. But
got another question here. Kevin says, you think there are people looking at taking over if a sale could be agreed, and at what cost do you think it could happen? I suppose, Graeme, you might know a little bit more about that. Is there any sort of knowledge of people actually looking at our club at all to buy, or
no,
they're not open to sell? Yeah.
but to answer the question, why would you hear about it? You know, no one with that sort of financial clout is going to come out, and it doesn't need to come out in the media and tell you. If they're going to make a bid, it will be in the background. So are there people out there? Absolutely, there's people out there who'd be interested in a club in London with the traditions and history of West Ham United. Absolutely, there is. You know, I've often heard people say, well, if you don't want Sullivan and Gold, then who's going to take over? But that's not really, you know, the job of anyone to sort of suggest who that might be. At what cost do I think it could happen? I think David Sullivan has valued the club around the £500 million mark. I think that's a little bit ambitious. I think probably somewhere between, I mean, I mentioned sort of a 300 million figure earlier for another question. I think that's probably more realistic. But, you know, even so, when you consider they put in a sort of 40 to 50 million for the club 10 years ago, that's some improvement, isn't it, on their initial investment?
I know Paul always says it. Do you think they're waiting for potentially that stadium to be given to them? In terms of it's losing so much money, at some point they believe that it will just be given to them.
I think it's inevitable, mate. I think it's just a question of when, or, you know, it'll be given to them. It'll be a token payment or something like that. But they can't carry on running it as it is, just continuously losing money. But the problem is, if you were the board, if you were Sullivan, and at the moment you're playing peppercorn rent, why would you want to take it on? Just from his perspective, yeah, it'd be an asset for the club. But at the moment, they've got such a good deal from it. I don't know why he would want it. Why would he want to take on all the operating costs as well? I suppose then you'd be looking at things like naming rights to kind of counterbalance it. But I definitely think it's a matter of when. Yeah, I think it'll definitely happen. Probably not too far down the line, but yeah, I think it will happen.
You wouldn't buy it, would you? There's no incentive of buying it if your intention is selling the club at some point, which we think is their intentions. No, I'm just having a look here. Is Nzonzi better than Sanchez? Yeah, I think so. I think I'm better than Sanchez. Right, I'm going to go on because we haven't got a lot of time. So, FA Cup preview, big game on Saturday. The return of Slav and Julian. Obviously, just doing my little Jeff Sterling bit here. So, West Brom are top of the Championship. Obviously, Slav returning, like I say. And I think you might remember these names because they will haunt West Ham a little bit, some of these names. Charlie Austin is currently their top goal scorer on 8 goals. Matty Phillips, I remember him being a really good player about sort of 5-6 years ago. Was he the one from Blackpool, I think? Yeah, Charlie Austin, he scares me. I think he's like the Glenn Murrays and the Lukaku's, isn't he?
He ain't got no knees, has he? He'll be
no knees. He'll score an hat-trick the weekend. In terms of last game, we played against them, beat them 2-1 on the 2nd of January 2018. 2 goals from the big man, Andy Carroll. What's your things on this game, guys? What do you think? Go to Graeme first.
Well, firstly, we've got some history with Charlie Austin. I think Paul might have referred to it a little bit there when we did that infamous podcast with David Sullivan, and he uttered those immortal words about Charlie Austin having no knees, and it ended up with me having to write a grovelling apology to Charlie Austin to kind of avoid being sued in a way. So I hope for that reason alone that we absolutely smashed them off the park on Saturday. But it's going to be a tough game.
Slav is going to be their point to prove as well.
Slav's going to be well up for it. Did you see he did a thing today with the Telegraph where he said that he preferred Upton Park to the Olympic Stadium, which I thought was a crafty little dig at his form.
See the training ground bit as well. Did you read the bit about the training ground? Saying that I designed a training ground, I don't want it to look like a 5-star hotel.
That's right. So I think he's getting his digs in. He's getting his digs in early there. It's going to be a tough game. And especially with our form in the league being so bad at the moment. And is Moyes really going to be up for it? Because we saw when Moyes was here last time, we went to Arsenal. Do you remember that Carabao Cup quarter-final where we didn't even have a shot on goal? And we went out of the competition with a whimper. Terrible. One of the worst games I've ever seen.
I think both teams were trying not to win that, to be honest.
It was, yeah. That's what it seemed like. Yeah. So whether we're going to be really up for it. The other thing you've got to question is, Paul, I think you alluded to Rice earlier, and he's not had a rest. We're talking about a 20-year-old lad here who's been playing every week all season, and at some point you've got to give these guys a break. That will be his 3rd game in a week. But
I think you'll be scared to risk Antonio Saturday as well. I think you'll want Antonio for Liverpool. Really, if you were going for it, you'd want Antonio in there Saturday, wouldn't you? Yeah, you really wanted to go for it.
I think the probably the position that we're in at the minute as well, even more so. I can't see him putting out full strength, really going for it, to be honest. I think he's going to have to prioritise the league, even though it seems stupid to say that when you look at our upcoming fixtures. But
really, we've got to try and get something now at Liverpool, Man City. Them games, we've got to try and get something. It's hard, but we have to try and get something.
Do you know what, mate? I've been saying this all week. Where I work, a lot of Liverpool fans, a lot of Man United fans. I'm over in Northern Ireland, so that's all they support over here. And it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if we're the team that beats Liverpool. It really wouldn't. We'll beat Liverpool and we'll go down. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
My mate in work is a Liverpool fan, and he said, the game he's scared of the most of breaking the record is West Ham. That's the game he's most scared of.
They'll probably be a 6-0, really.
So I'm just going to flash up how they've been lining up. It's a new thing that I've been doing because people like it. So they line up in this sort of formation at the moment. So it's a 4-2-3-1. Obviously, we expect Charlie Austin to play. Obviously, Diagana, we know, is injured. Like Livermore, former player. Pereira, good player as well. So they've got some good players there. They've got some good, decent players. I'm glad Diagana can't play against us because, again, I think he would score against us. But what do you think, prediction-wise, in terms of how can we hurt them, and you think we will win? That's Paul first.
Predictions, I really don't know, mate. It really does. It depends on the team he puts out. How seriously we're going to take it. Like we've already said, I think Slav's going to be well up for it. I think they're quite comfortable where they are at the minute in the Championship, so I don't think they have to worry too much about resting too many players. It's going to be a tough game. It really is.
Yeah, I'm going Saturday as well.
Are we up for it? I don't know.
Usually go out as well this weekend as well before I let Graeme in, because this weekend is my birthday weekend. So usually this round of the FA Cup usually always ruins my birthday. Apart from the Man United 1-0. When Di Canio scored, my greatest birthday ever, usually always go out this round. So, Graeme, what's your thoughts on West Brom?
Well, I think Paul's taken the words right out of my mouth there. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen because we just don't know what team we're going to put out. And the same goes for Bilic as well and Albion. They're doing so well. and they're pushing for promotion, will they put their best team out in a cup competition that they've got absolutely no chance of winning when they're fighting on both, fighting to come back up, which is obviously the main priority, as much as the priority for us is to stay in that in the top flight. So if I was gonna offer a prediction, and based on the fact that it's ruined your birthday every year since 2001, was it? That was a long time ago, wasn't it? That was a long time ago that day. Yeah. I would say I'm gonna sit on the fence then and say it'll probably end up like a 1-1 job. We'll go back to the Hawthorns, and we might get stuffed in the replay, which sounds terribly pessimistic. But I don't think it's priority.
I think with Slav as well. If he gets West Brom promoted, he's a wanted commodity again. Then he's proved like I'm a man who can get a team out of Championship. Frank Lampard didn't do it last year. There's been a lot of good managers that have gone down there and not got clubs up. If he does that again, he's his career again, hasn't he? He's all of a sudden, he's a manager that Premier League, was little a Bournemouth or someone like that might look at, think, oh yeah, you know what, Slav, he's good. He was a good manager. He was just too nice. West Ham. That's all it was. He was a good manager.
Well, the problem is that, sorry, Luke, but like all the managers we've had in the last 10 years, they've, there's a very similar pattern. They come in, they do relatively well in their first season, when they're backed, and then the second season they don't get back so much. And if they make season 3, which not many of them do, they're fighting fires all the way. And in fact, the only one who's ever stayed, I think, for the duration of his contract was Allardyce. Isn't that right? Yeah. To like the last day of it, wasn't it? Yeah. So that says a lot. But Bilic is a good manager. There's no question about it. And he's a top guy as well. It was.
Loves the club as well.
That was the last manager that we. Sorry, what was that?
I was going to say, he talked so highly of the club as well.
Yeah. He's really positive. But he was the last manager we managed to get access to the press conferences for, and he was a top man, Slaven. And in fact, this bottle here, I nicked this from the very last press conference at the bowling.
Could have the old Bill coming around in a minute.
Slaven actually drunk out of this, so this is a treasured memory of those times. But I like Slav. I've got loads of time for him. Absolutely, and I hope he does really well there.
Me too, mate. I'm going to go back into questions here very quickly. Can you see Moyes staying if we go down? It's a cheap fix, and our club is renowned for cheapness. So I think he would stay, no?
I think he'd stay. I don't think he'd leave on his own accord, because if he takes us down, where else is he going to go, realistically?
His career's over. His career's over, really, as top flight manager. What about you, Graeme?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see him going anywhere. I mean, he's got the obvious get-out clause that he's only coming to the club halfway through the season. Hasn't really been given any backing in the transfer window so far. You never know. We never know what might happen. So yeah, absolutely. And the club aren't going to go for anyone else, are they? They're not going to, they're not going to go back for Allardyce. And as you said right back at the top, who is there? Who's better to get us out there?
Yeah,
he'll see his 18-month contracts out, I think, whatever happens.
Yeah. A couple more questions, because I know Paul hasn't got a lot of time. Do you take FA Cup win, relegation? You think we will take seriously? No, we've got to stay in the Premier League. For me, again, you guys might have a different opinion. For me, Premier League's your bread and butter. That's where the money is. That's where the big players come in. FA Cup's brilliant. It would go down as a record, bigger one, the FA Cup. And where are they now? I do not want to become Wigan. I'll let Graeme start this one, and Paul can have the second bit on it.
I don't know, actually. I don't know. Because I'll tell you this. When I look back, my first game at Upton Park was 1976. And we just won the FA Cup. It was the first game I ever saw on TV. The following year, I still remember sitting there with my nan watching West Ham versus Anderlecht at the Heysel Stadium in 76, where we got beat 4-2. In 1980, I remember being on holiday in Scotland because my dad decided to book a holiday in Cup final week. So we were in the arse end of nowhere. Well, I had to listen to Celtic and Rangers because we couldn't get English TV at that time. Obviously, a long time ago. 2006 was the last game I ever attended with my mum, the Cup final. And apart from that, there's been a few highlights. The Payet goals that we spoke about earlier. Di Canio at Old Trafford. So when you sort of look back as a supporter, do you remember staying in the Premier League? Do you remember finishing 10th? Do you remember a boring 1-1 draw at Everton, for example, that keeps you in the Premier League? Or do you remember those special days, those fantastic, wonderful days you had out with family and friends that stay with you forever and form, part of what you are in a way? So I totally understand what you're saying about the Premier League being our bread and butter. But I don't think we'd be at Wigan anyway if we went down. I mean, we are, we would be by far and away the biggest club in the Championship were we to go down. I think Leeds has the biggest turnover in the Championship at the moment, and we would dwarf what they take in revenue. You're still going to get. I think Huddersfield took 42 million last year from TV rights when they were relegated. So you're down 2/3, but there's still a fair old chunk there. We know for a fact, because I'm sure you were all watching Gonzo's video earlier on Hammers Chat when he told wages, us that most of the players, that's right, we're on a 50% wage cut in the event of relegation. I don't know. I understand. There's two things going on there. There's the head says Premier League is the be all and the end all because that's where your money comes from. But for me, the greatest days I've ever had out, and my best memories as a West Ham fan going back to 1975 are those cup wins, are those cup days. So, what we should have here is a Wigan supporter on the show.
Yeah, that's
say,
a good point.
Was it worth it?
Or a Pompey fan, yeah.
Absolutely, or a Pompey fan. So, I don't know. I'm torn.
For me, I kind of agree with Graeme, to be honest with you, mate. We've had similar questions before when we've been doing a little bit better, and we've asked whether we'd prefer a cup win or like Champions League qualification. And I've always said, Champions League qualification. I'd dream of having European nights out as a West Ham fan. But when you look at it the other side, relegation and a cup win, or staying up and a cup win, I would have to pick the cup win. I mean, I'm 35. You're the same, Luke. We've never seen them win anything. I've never seen West Ham win anything in my lifetime.
I've seen them win the Intertoto Bob Cup.
Yeah, we're not going to win the Premier League, but we might win a cup. And like you say, Graeme, that's something to remember. That's a memory that me as a West Ham fan, I haven't got. The closest I've got was 2006, and that was one of the worst and one of the best days of my life. So yeah, for me, I would have to say a cup. I'd have to say a cup. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Graeme, mate. Cheers for coming on again, mate. You was a great guest last time and a great guest. You're welcome on any time, mate. You're just a great guest. And
always thank you for having me on. It's much appreciated.
As well, mate, which I appreciate. You always put our stuff out on Twitter, it's been done and all that. So, yeah, anyone, if you've not been on Knees Up Mother Brown, where have you been on there? They've got some of the best articles on there, and obviously they're starting their YouTube thing and all that as well. So good luck to them. Thank you for joining us for episode 102. We'll be back next week with 103. There's just one tweet that I've seen today sums up the whole mood of West Ham at the minute, and I'm going to leave that up on the screen. Till next week, guys. See you later.
Bye.